When should we pretend that we give a shit? Having no prior thoughts on how I'm going to do this video, it's just the term that came out. As I was finishing my last video, it kind of made me think, when is it okay to admit that we just don't give a shit about something? Often I hear stories from people that I just don't really care about, and I will humor them because I care about the person. I know that may sound harsh, but it's brutal honesty. I talked to somebody about brutal honesty the other day. I said, being honest is a great thing. It's very important. But being overly honest about certain things, you will get yourself in a lot of trouble. If somebody starts telling you something and you say, hey, I'm going to cut you off, I just don't give a shit. That person is not going to be too happy with you. I mean, they're going to say, hey, you're my friend, you're supposed to listen, you're supposed to care. And if it's something that is important to the person, then I do listen and I do care. Not because the subject matters to me, but because the person matters to me. And if a good friend or a loved one tells me something that, in confidence or just in jest or whatever it may be, I will listen because I care about the person. So my question here is, when is it okay to say, I don't care about that? It seems like in today's world, if you say you don't care about something in particular, people think that you have an incomplete picture, of something. For example, if I were studying, if I were discussing conspiracy theories and somebody brought up reptilians and I said, I don't care about that. Doesn't matter to me, I don't like that story. Doesn't resonate with me, doesn't have any purpose in what I'm studying. A person could say, yeah, but you're leaving out a major component. Because in their studies, they found that that's something important. This isn't just conspiracies, this could be politics. This could be, say, global warming. A person's arguing against with somebody who's arguing for it being real. And people start throwing out all these numbers and ideas and opinions, and at a point you just have to back up and say, wait, I just don't give a shit about the details. But then you seem like you're shallow and you don't understand and you don't have a grasp on it. So there are certain things that you have to give a shit about. If you want to pretend like you know something, or if you want to at least seem like you have a grasp on something, you have to research it as much as possible. So I'm not talking about not giving a crap about things that are going on in the world, or not giving a crap about the finer details of a subject, but rather stories that just don't matter to us. I can say that I'm a person who, to be honest, I have a lot of compassion and empathy for people who are not doing well, people who are sick, people who have put themselves or got themselves into situations where they really want to get out, but they don't know what to do, whether it be through addiction or living with an abusive husband or wife, or not being able to afford to feed themselves. And at the same time, sometimes I have to step back and say, wait a minute, how much can I give a shit about this? How hard has this person worked to get themselves somewhere? And they live in a nation, if you live within the United States, and you live in a city that's not in complete chaos and degradation, and you have even a high school education, you should be able to pull your head out of your ass and find something to do. But I also know that in my heart that I can only see through my eyes, okay? This is the hardest thing to get across. I understand that my perspective is skewed, but only to other people. Just like their vision will be skewed to me because I have my own perspectives. So, when you tell someone, that you just don't give a shit about something, they may be offended by it. But that brutal honesty can save you a lot of trouble of trying to just sure, and listening for the sake of listening. And I haven't really given any good examples because I think each one of you knows a person or people or talk with folks on the internet or family or friends or somebody, that we all have small talk, and that's what life's about. This is something I've been trying to deal with in the last few years, which was that I despise small talk. But without small talk, there is no talk. Without small talk, you can't ease into something greater. So the question is, I started to break down small talk and ask myself, what is small talk? Is small talk just saying, hey, it sure is nice outside? Which is something that I do too. You know, I'm in the store, oh, it's a nice day today, or it's hot, or it's cold. Yeah, you state the obvious, you know. But that's kind of how we communicate. It's how you say, hey, how you doing, you know. And at that point, you kind of hit a wall with some people that all they want to do is talk about small talk. And they might get onto a subject of talking about other people. And this is where I just cringe and I cannot pretend to care. Because when people start talking about others and they start labeling them and putting them in categories, whether it be movie stars, presidents, you know, corporate leaders, it doesn't matter. These are all the stories that we talk about, all the people that we talk about. Most of it is stories that we hear from the news or from other people. And so there's a lot of regurgitated information out there. And it's, at a point you just have to walk away, you know, and just say, look, I'm not interested in discussing this particular subject anymore. And I myself have walked away from several subjects that I used to be interested in. Basically anything that has to do with New World Order or the Illuminati or, you know, these conspiracies against all the people or archons or aliens. It's all just been put in a box on a shelf for later times. In other words, the information I've gathered about what I can learn is there, but it's all through secondhand experience, except for my personal UFO experience, which is a different story. But all of those things that I put on the shelf, they're not cast away, they're not thrown in the garbage. They're set up there for a further discussion down the line when new ideas come to light. When somebody says, hey, did you hear about this new thing that happened, or this, you know, whatever the event may be, and then you draw from that information you have on the shelf and say, okay, add a few little pieces to your puzzle. And I guess maybe you could picture it like a room full of puzzles. And they're all in these little sliding drawers, and once in a while you pull a puzzle out, you found a piece for it, you know, and hopefully you put as many together as you can. The problem for me is when a whole bunch of people are trying to put together a puzzle and they get to the point where they can't find any more pieces, so they just flip the puzzle and start all over, you know. Oh, let's just put new ideas in here. Oh, this one doesn't fit, so let's just cram it in here. It's like putting together a puzzle where all the pieces are the same, but they all fit, and there's no picture on it. You know what I mean? And I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. These are some of the hardest things to express to me. It's like I just want to say something like, I do give a shit, but I don't give a shit. You know? It's like, I do care about people, but I don't care about their petty whining bullshit. You know, the problems that some people see as problems. You know, I see these people who have come from very poor countries, horrible situations, you know, walking miles for their water, if they have any water at all, washing their clothes in mud, and they say, man, I'm going to get out of this, I'm going to do something. They end up finding a way to get, you know, go to America or Europe, wherever they want, and they start a group, and they start to support groups, because they know how important it is to care about other people's problems, because they've been there. And then we have folks who have never been there, who are trying to pretend out of almost like a guilt. Like, well, let's just give money to this charity. And along that lines, you know, I don't mean to be harsh, but the whole charity guilt thing is bullshit. When I walk into a grocery store, the minute they start asking me, hey, we're collecting money for the no, thanks. And they look at me like, what? You don't, I'm not going to donate money to the cause that you're claiming is going to help these people. It has nothing to do with whether I care about people. It has everything to do with the corruption of nonprofit organizations. We know that charities have been, you know, some charities are using less than half their money for the purposes, and the rest is going to administration. And anyway, I know that sounds off the subject, but these are the things that lead you to say, hey, fuck it all, you know. And a lot of people walk away and they just stop caring. They assume that everyone is lying. They assume that everyone's out to get them and everyone's ripping them off. And that's not the way I see the world. Because I'm living from my heart. I feel truly in my heart that other people do care. And that even the people who seem like they don't care, they do inside. But not all people. There are some sociopaths that don't give a shit. It's a world of chaos. reduced to the simple Descartes term, I think, therefore I am. And these philosophies, they all do us no good. You know, we can pretend we're in a dream, we can pretend like this whole thing's a play, that everything's set up, that nothing is as it seems, but it doesn't matter. Because you're still waking up every day as you, and you still have to find your place along this world. You can be mad at the world, it's not going to give a shit, you know, and life goes on. So ultimately, my point, I guess, would be to create an understanding that the way that people perceive you, and I'm sure that each one of you have been misunderstood by somebody, when they think you just don't care, or that you're just too rough, or maybe you're too passive, or too aggressive, whatever it may be. And inside you know, that's not accurate, it's just hard for me to express it. Just think about that next time you judge someone else, and realize that in their heart, they may have the same thing going on. As humans, we grow up thinking that we're going to reach an age of maturity where we're going to be respected and respectable and know what's going on. And you quickly find that that's complete nonsense. We're all children.